Hello, flower friends. It's your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and in foliage, as you can see here. And welcome to the live gardening show today. This is the Eucalyptus show. Eucalyptus is something that I worked for years to figure out how to start from seed and grow. And we've done a pretty dadgum good job. Have you ever met Polly Ann before? This is her. And so we'll be meeting up with her in just a few minutes. But before we jump into that, friends, I want to just welcome you here to our live gardening show. And if we've never met before, my name is Lisa Mason Ziegler with the Gardener's Workshop. And friends, we are all about empowering people to grow cut flowers, whether for profit or for pleasure. You know, I was a flower farmer for over 25 years, and now I'm on this mission to help other people, particularly people like me that think they can't do it. Whether I live in the middle of the city, I had never even been on a farm before. I was barely a gardener, and that was it, you know, back in 1998. And then I found my way to where I am now. And so we just love sharing what's going on the farm here and how we do it, showing you and demonstrating, and then offering the same tools, seeds, supplies, and resources that I use, and all the resources that we've created. And friends, I'm just super excited today to show you how I start eucalyptus, and also to share with you our latest resource. Technically, I've written 5 books, 3 of them cut flower books. Well, actually 4 of them, but 3 of them are still currently being published. Written 3 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big online courses. And I want to just mention that I am feeling like this current resource that we now have in the process of coming out in early winter, I think is perhaps the most powerful resource that I've made yet. And I'm talking about the Big Calendar Journal. And if you have read any of my books or taken any of my courses, I talk about this calendar all the time. This calendar was born here on my farm about 15 years ago. And it is what pulled me all together and turned me into the 3-season succession planter that I am today. Because friends, you're not supposed to remember it all. That was what I struggled with. And also the thing about this big calendar, which let me show you the cover, just like, you know, covers of books come out long before the book does. This is the calendar. It's 20 inches wide, 30 inches tall, and it has 12 months. We call it an any year calendar. That means the days are not filled in. You fill those in for the year that you're starting with. And then, friends, the other little samples of pages over here is the a little bit of the instruction page that I include, which is my guide step by step to 8 different planting windows and how to follow my guide for your garden. And then on the last page of the calendar, it is full of my tips, things like storing seeds, buying seeds, just all kinds of stuff like that. So the Big Calendar Journal is now available for pre-order, and it'll start shipping in late November. And what, you know, the deal is, that's the first printing. And I would love if you are one of our people to get in on the first printing, because I'm going to be offering to all pre-orders, pre-purchases, a free live workshop where we're going to go through these instructions, and you're going to mark up your calendar for your planting windows that will then lead you to easily find your seed starting dates. And so this big calendar not only will guide you through the season, even when you're hot and exhausted. But friends, this is the best farm journal you will ever have. I have like 13 years, I think, of them upstairs. And I bring them out in January. I make a date with myself, bring out all the previous calendars. I lay them out on tables, and I look at month by month all of them and find notes and things and reminders of what I want to do different, what I want to add, what I want to delete, how I want to start something earlier or later, when was the first harvest. Just such easy to follow information. And I give you all my recommendations on this calendar of suggested ways to write on the calendar. I even send you with the calendar. By the way, the calendar is $39.95. And if you're on a phone and you have the chat box open, you may need to close it to see the ribbon underneath the video of where the products are available. This is there. It's $39.95 plus shipping. And we actually send you the brand pencil we recommend that you write on the calendar with that doesn't smear when you erase when you need to do that. Friends, this is, I believe, one of the most powerful tools that has just created me into the farmer that I am today. And we have created it for you. And I am sharing all my tips and tricks and how I actually use it. And so this will be a spectacular opportunity. And I would love for you to be in on the first printing. So that is still available at this point in time. So I want to talk about eucalyptus. And of course, eucalyptus, everybody loves eucalyptus. I haven't met anybody yet that doesn't like it. Maybe even if you have a fragrance problem. But eucalyptus is a pretty spectacular foliage. And I grow 3 different types. And I have, I will say that after growing so many eucalyptuses over the years, that I really have not experienced a difference in growth habit and germination from the 3 that I'm going to actually share with you today. Now, what you need to know about eucalyptus is, it's native to Australia, hot, y'all, right? Hotter than blue blitzing down there. And so it's a warm season tender annual. At least that's how we actually treat it. Now, if you live in Southern California or down in Zone 10 in Florida, chances are good your eucalyptus will survive winter, which means if you don't control it, it will grow into a giant tree, right? Which is not what you want as a flower farmer. You want to keep it cut down so that it'll produce lots of usable size stems. But I grow it as a warm season tender annual. And the key to getting great production is to have healthy, nice transplants as early to go to the garden as you can plant it. And we plant eucalyptus typically right at our last spring frost. Because in addition to planting these great little transplants, we immediately hoop and row cover them, because I don't know about you, but where we are, we can have warm days and coolish nights, which probably won't kill your eucalyptus, but it's also not going to help it. So by using hoops and row covers, you can really help get them well rooted in. So you really want to give them, you want to kind of like create your own little Australia, right, out there in the garden. Eucalyptus is useful whether if you're a home gardener, it is great to have it out in the garden, but it's beautiful to bring it in, whether it's in a vase by itself or you use it in mixed bouquets. And as flower growers, every market I sold in would take it, but typically it never made it past the florist. They always bought everything up, right? The quality of what we grow locally is just so far surpassed. I was actually looking at eucalyptus. I went to a grocery store this morning and they had a bunch of eucalyptus. And I thought, oh my gosh, the stuff that we grow is just so much better than that, right? So it's useful in mixed bouquets, straight bunches, whatever it is that you're actually doing. And we started from seed. And I started in soil blocking, which is, I'm a big soil blocker. I started in the small soil block. And it is the first seed that I start out of the gate, meaning when we come back from the holidays, the first week of January, eucalyptus is the first seed that I start. And it's not that it's a poor germinator. I get it to sprout fairly quickly in 7 to 10 days. It's just a slow transplant grower, just like Lysianthus, if you've ever tried to grow that. And when you have a slow grower in the transplant stage, it is so easy to kill it. You can kill it with overwatering, underwatering, all those kinds of things, and conditions. Remember, it's from Australia. It's going to really appreciate a warm place to grow. I know for me, at that time of the year, I'm also starting more cool season hardy annuals. Last year, I actually segregated and brought my eucalyptus out into the big room that I'm in right now, over in a cozy corner where it was warmer than the grow room was, where I was keeping it cool for cool flowers. So you have to think about those things, because the point is you want to have the biggest, healthiest transplant ready to hit the ground as soon as your frost date passes, and then hoop and row cover it. And that just for that next month. And that just encourages it to really throw down roots and get busy instead of getting cold, getting warm, getting cold, getting warm, right? That just helps to level that out. So let's look at some of the eucalyptuses. So this is Silver Dollar. This is the classic, right? That so many people recognize as eucalyptus. And it's really that, it's kind of that gray-green color. And this is the one that, all of them are worthy to be put in a vase by themselves. But this one is, you frequently see that, right? I love this one. There's one stem in here that is like my perfect type. This would be like a perfect mixed bouquet stem, right? Several little branches there at the top. And we just love this stuff. And this would be more, and this hasn't been stripped yet. This would be more of like what I would call a grade A stem that I would bunch and sell to a florist, where it's got great stem length. I would cut off all these side shoots. People are frequently asking me, well, how do you harvest them? Well, even though they're tender annuals, they're not going to like regrow like a zinnia or a coxcomb does, right? They're slow growers. We typically don't even start harvesting until September and October. And that is a twofold reason. One, it's part of my marketing. I would just always say to customer, oh yeah, our eucalyptus comes out in September and October. The anticipation builds, but also at this time of the year, it's all hardened off and ready to be cut. The team does not have to decide, is that ready to be cut or not, right? And so it's twofold. So September and October are our eucalyptus times to cut. So these plants are about shoulder height or a little bit more out in the garden. This was the central stem of one said plant, about this tall. And you can see where I cut it. Most annuals, I would never cut like at waist height, right? I would be way down almost at ground level to stimulate more strong, straight stems. Well, that's not going to happen with eucalyptus. I left the bottom half of this plant because it's got some great side shoots that are on the verge of being their own little, where's that one I just held up? Something like this was a side shoot. These are their own standalone. This would be a great guy to add to a mixed bouquet, right? So you're not expecting eucalyptus to regrow in the year that you're actually cutting on it, right? And if you're like me, where you can't just winter it over outdoors without some kind of protection, you only get that 1 year's chance. So that is the Silver Dollar, and I harvest the same for all the varieties. And how many of these, having a bunch of 6 of these, this is a side shoot, that is super valuable. So this is Silver Dollar, and all the seeds are available here in the shop. And again, I would be starting these out of the gate in January. I count on giving myself 16 weeks to get to a beautiful plant size, which we'll look at the seed starting here in just a moment. Now, this is a spectacular eucalyptus. Has anybody ever grown this one? This is Polyanthemus. I call her Pollyann. And she is so different, right? So very, very different from the Silver Dollar. So let me let's see here. Let's get a nice stem for you to see. So these were exactly the same as the Silver Dollar. This was the plant out in the garden. These are tall. These are the tallest this year. And all of these, where's my snippers? All of these, and y'all can find the pouch and clippers that I use in the ribbon below. So all of these would be cut off. And I typically don't strip eucalyptus out in the garden so that I don't lose track of these little guys, because you can use it for stuff. So, let's just say you're preparing a bunch for supermarkets or florists. I would not include all of these. These are probably pretty useless, these little teeny ones. But this is what a grade A eucalyptus stem would look like for a florist, right? But look at all of these side shoots that, especially if you're selling at farmers markets, I'm telling you, people buy this. These little, because they can go into a vase all of their own. How pretty is that? You can even show it in a simple something. that is super cool, y'all. If you go to the home stores, they have fake eucalyptus that looks like this, right? So, I'm saying you could sell this as a bouquet, and this is the strippings at the bottom of a stem that you're getting premium dollars for. So that's how I would strip eucalyptus. Eucalyptus, when you're cutting it at the stage that we cut it, and see, here's another one. That was another stem that I did. These are just great, useful stems, so you don't want to just let them get away from you. And they would get away from me if I cut them out in the garden. They're just short. They don't fit in a bucket. Where are you going to put them? You know what I mean? That's kind of my method of madness for that. So starting from seed can be a little intimidating. People talk about any slow grower is challenging, as I've mentioned, and Lysianthus, that's why so many of us get plugs of that, except that with Lysianthus, typically those of us growing, we used to order like 8,000 Lysianthus plants. That's a bazillion trays. Eucalyptus, I typically am not growing that much of. So it's not really useful for me to order a tray of 72 or 128 or whatever the size that it's available. It's just more than I need. So that's led me to become a good seed starter of eucalyptus. And so if you're not familiar yet with soil blocking, this is actually feverfew. And I use these as a demonstration. So this is a salvia. This is Salvia Blue Better Farinacea. This salvia and this feverfew were started on the exact same day. You want to talk about slow transplant growers? This feverfew, this is Tetra White Wonder. And so I have kind of perfected how to try not to kill the transplants, because, when you have a little tiny plant like this, it is so easy to overwater it because they are not robust. These guys suck the life out of the water the second I put it in the tray, right? It's hard to overwater this. So easy to overwater this. And that is part of the issue with eucalyptus and Lysianthus. So I have found that starting in soil blocks makes it so much easier to regulate watering versus in a plug tray or something. It's even harder than to have a little tiny seed on the top of a big chunk of soil. Either the bottom is wet and the top is dry, or vice versa. It just makes it really challenging. So let me show you how I start my eucalyptus, and I'm going to sow some. It's a surface sower, meaning it gets sown on the surface and does not get covered. And that makes it kind of challenging for some folks. They don't quite, I think I need to turn this around. They don't quite understand how that works. So I'm going to show you how I sow them and then what I do, and then we're going to bump some up. All right, so let me just turn this down so you can see. So this is the tub that I do my soil blocking in. This is the small soil blocker. It makes 20 of those 3/4 inch blocks, and those green trays that I was just showing you each have 100 of those on there. This is the larger block, which you'll see that in just a moment. I'm going to bump them up, and I'll talk about that whole process. So this is the blocking mix. It's the ready-made mix that we offer, and it's wet. We tell you the ratio. It's basically 1 part water to 3 parts of the blocking mix to make it kind of, this is borderline too dry. Let's get a little water, y'all. I'll tell you that if you have trouble with soil blocks not coming out the way you thought, I can almost promise you it is too dry, because it needs to be pretty moist for the little tool to be able to push them out. And the blocking mix, I mean, I've used this last night. I just used this an hour ago to do demonstrations, and it's already dried out. So you hold the tool on the stationary bar and you push it down a couple of times. That just ensures that the chambers are actually full. This is a potato masher, y'all, best tool for mixing the water and the blocking mix. Now, we use reusable foam trays, no drainage holes, and it doesn't have any ridges in it to trap water. You place the tool on the tray, give it a squeeze, and that quick, we literally just made 20 of those little blocks. And that's exactly how many eucalyptuses I would start. Now, before we sow those seeds, I want to show you how I make the 2-inch blocks. So here's the story. I would start my eucalyptus seeds the first week in January. They would grow probably estimated 3 to 4 weeks in this block. And I'll see if I have a seedling over here that I would show you the size that I'm looking to get. This is a little bit bigger. I'm actually pulling apart some of these. Look at these gorgeous roots, y'all. This is salvia that we're pretending this is eucalyptus, y'all. So I'm pulling it apart. So this is a little bit, this is actually half of this size is what I would be transplanting up to. And that's what I'm going to show you how we do. So we'll bump up these 4 transplants. And I will tell you, I do this on no other flower. This is way too labor intensive. It's not needed if you start your seeds at the proper time. But because eucalyptus is a slow grower, we'll start the seed the first week of January. Probably by the end of January, I'll be bumping them up, and then they're going to grow in that 2-inch block until they're ready to go to the garden. So let's look at this 2-inch blocker. So both of these tools we import from England from the original company, the Ladbrokes, and this makes 4 of the 2-inch blocks. And let me show you how this works. The technique is a little bit different, and it uses a lot more soil. This is why we always choose to use the small blocker unless the seed is too large. And that's when you're bumping up. That's when we use the 2-inch blocker. Like, for instance, I start all my sweet peas in this 2-inch blocker. Now, I'm trying not to knock the computer off. So you push it down, and then it's kind of a little bit of a different technique, just ensuring that the end blocks are really full. And it uses a lot more soil, which you'll recognize that right away. So this is a little bit bigger tray. This tray will hold 8 of these small blockers. So I'm just pulling up on the plunger, and because it's got the inserts in there, if the soil is really wet, I just put all that extra water in there. It just really makes it suction. So you just give it a second, and there you go. That one kind of. So we just made 4 2-inch blocks with a perfect size hole that we can drop that 3/4 inch in, and we'll do that in just a moment here, okay? So I think I'm going to get rid of this. And I think, where's my stand? Y'all, you know what? I am just so bad. We'll use a Kleenex box. How about it? Hey, we're being resourceful. So I'm going to put this right here and turn this down so you guys can see me sow my seeds. So eucalyptus seed should not be covered with soil. That means it needs light to germinate. And when you use this little static-free aluminum seed pan, that means you do not have to fight to get the seed out. Y'all watch this. Literally, can you see that seed just jumped right on my toothpick? I don't know about you, but before I learned this, I spent more time trying to get the seed out of the container. So you are going to firmly seat the seed on the surface and wipe to the right or left. And that firmly seats the seed in the soil. You don't want to open. I just picked up a bunch. You don't want to do that. You just want one seed for one block. I firmly seed it and then wipe to the right to leave it there. You seed it. Seating it means you just firmly place it on the soil. If you were to try to just sprinkle seeds because it says sow it on the surface, the seed doesn't make contact. It's not going to get hydrated. It's going to just sit there and dry out and die, right? So that is literally, I could do this all day, y'all. You sow it on the surface and wipe to the right. It just pops off. And another thing I will mention for soil blocking people, I get this question frequently. Can I make a bunch of soil blocks today and then sow a little bit every day over the next week? You just don't want to do that. We make our blocks and then we sow them and then we make more blocks. I mean, we'll make, depending on how many people are sowing seeds, but when the blocks are really moist and freshly made, the key is really moist. The seed comes off so much easier. It's just easier to sow the seed. So sowing the seeds, I'm sowing the seeds. For my last frost date is mid-April. I'm starting my eucalyptus the first week in January. It's going to grow for about a month, 3 to 4 weeks in this small block, slow growers. It's going to be about this tall. And then we are going to bump them up. And as I mentioned earlier, I do not bump up. The only thing I bump up is eucalyptus, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant. Nothing else. All the other, almost 95% of all the other seeds that we grow here on my farm and start indoors is all started in a small block. It's about timing, y'all. You start it later to grow quicker, to plant it out at the right stage. You do not need to be bumping anything up. That is incredibly labor intensive. All right, so once again, we are going to pretend that these are eucalyptus babies, and they are a little bigger than what a eucalyptus plant. Keep looking for small ones. I don't see one, so we're just going with it, y'all. All right. So look at that beautiful seedling. So this is 1 month old. September 10th, it was actually started. And literally the way that I need to turn this back down. The way that you bump up is so simple. You just simply tuck that block down into the block, y'all. It does not take more than that. So here it is, a little small block. And you know, we tend to think we have to do more than that, but that's it. Those roots are going to dive into these 2-inch. So this is closer to the size. You know, if I have long, hangy roots like that, I just prune them, just pluck them off. And that makes for quick, wrong one. Look at that. How easy that is to just pot it on. And we have one more coming. And here he is. Let's see if we can't just tuck his roots in. You do not need to put any more soil on top. That is the deal there. And those will straighten right up once I get them back under grow lights. And so just again, imagine that that is eucalyptus. So they're going to typically grow on in this size block until it's time to plant them out. And I love getting them outdoors. They're also the only seedling that I actually do a little coddling with. So I love getting them outside to harden off, but it's still too chilly at night. So frequently I'll put them out during the day, like before lunch, and then bring them in when I go in from working, which is usually 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're out for like a 3 or 4 hour window of little light wind, and we just have stellar transplants to go to the garden. So let me show you what is in the ribbon below. and that is the Soil Block Maker Kit. #1 product we have sold for 25 years, y'all. So this kit includes everything you need to get started soil blocking. It has the small blocker, which you just saw me make. It's 20 of the 3/4-inch blocks. It includes my Seed Starting Made Easy online course. You have lifetime unlimited access to it. It takes you from the start, growing them up, to the garden for all transplants. Then you also get to select your choice of either 3 cool season seeds with your kit or 3 warm season seeds. It also includes the 5 reusable foam trays, the seed pan that you just saw me use, a pack of Gardener Workshop toothpicks, and little plant markers, which I actually use for little tools. It comes with a bag of the ready-made blocking mix. This little 6-quart bag will make 600 of those little blocks, y'all. That's the savviness of this. Versus, are you ready? You know how many this bag will make of the bigger 2-inch block? Only 30. And there it is, y'all. You only use the large blocker when you absolutely need it, not the other way around, because you just need so much more resources, space and soil. So it comes with this, comes with the blocker, it comes with the trays, the seed pan, your choice of seeds. Oh, that's backwards. All of this for $89.95 plus shipping, and you are set to actually soil block. And then each new season, you're simply adding soil and seeds. We use the same trays over for years, y'all. So that is the basic Soil Block Maker Kit, right? Then if you want to be able to bump them up, you can also get the 2-inch blocker is available. Here it is. And that is 40. It's much cleaner than mine, isn't it? Years of use. This is $46.95, and it actually comes with these nipples that make an indentation in the top of the 2-inch block for you to put a seed in. But if you want to bump it up, so this I believe is $46.95, and so this, you can add this on to your kit or just add it to your order. But don't forget to get the inserts. You pop out these nipples and put these in, and this is what makes the perfect size hole to drop that transplant into. And let me tell you what I do here. So once I pop out the nipples and install the inserts, I don't ever take them out. So like when we make blocks for our sweet peas, it makes that hole you just saw. I just drop my sweet pea seed down into that block, or a zucchini or a squash, and then I just take a little dollop of the blocking mix and put it on top, and job's done, right? So I pop these out and put the inserts in and just leave them that way. These are $9.95, I believe. But once you have the small blocker, the 2-inch blocker, and the inserts, you can start anything. You can do anything. And these are the ones that I have literally used since the beginning of my career, almost 30 years ago. So I want to tell you the rest of the story. So, you know, we talked about that these guys are from Australia, right? Eucalyptus. Heat lovers, you definitely have to use a seedling heat mat. You have to warm up that soil. And so the seedling heat mat has a built-in thermostat so that it's keyed off of the air temperature. So let's just say your house is 70. So here, first off, people are thinking, my house is 70. That's probably warm enough. But here's the thing. Your air temperature is 70. That mass of soil is 15 to 20 degrees cooler than your air temperature. And so most seeds germinate best 75 to 90 degrees. Eucalyptus is in the top part of that. So if your house is 70, that means that soil without a heat mat is probably 55 to 60 degrees, which explains why people have crummy germination. It's a huge problem, y'all. But when you use a seedling heat mat, then that bumps it up, and that's what warms it up and tells the seed it's time to sprout, right? So here's just one little tip that I want to add for those of you that are also growing cool flowers, cool season hardy annuals. The second planting window, of course, is very early spring. I typically am starting those. I typically start eucalyptus and stock the first week. They have 2 totally different needs, right? Eucalyptus needs to be warm. Stock hates heat. So I put a cookie cooling rack on part of the heat mat to get my stock seedlings up off the major heat. It still needs warmth, just not heat. But then once they come off the heat mat, I keep the stock in an area that has like a 65 to 70 degree air temperature for growing short, stocky seedlings. Well, that won't do anything for eucalyptus. So we actually segregate the eucalyptus to another area where the air temperature is warmer to get them to grow faster. So you've got to think about this, y'all. This is one reason so many people fail with eucalyptus. It needs to be started when you're starting cool season stuff, but they have two totally different needs. So a seedling heat mat will jumpstart you and get it out. And then the other thing that I do to get them off to a running start out in the garden. So as I mentioned, my last frost date is classically mid-April. We still, in mid-April into early May, actually have cool nights and warm days. Well, those cool nights are going to like slow your eucalyptus or any warm season seed down. They kind of get cold at night instead of being warm all day and that having that last through the night. And how we ensure that they get that even when those nighttime temperatures can take some dips is we use floating row cover. You can find over on the website, if you click through the row cover or any products, it takes you to our website. We have the pre-arched wire hoops. When we plant our eucalyptus, they are immediately hooped and covered with lightweight row cover. Lightweight allows in the maximum amount of light. It blocks the wind, it lets the sunlight in, and it just concentrates the heat. And so that first month after you plant them, instead of them shivering at night and getting warm during the day and shivering at night, they are just toasty underneath there, laying down roots and getting busy. And that's how you have eucalyptus that's this tall at this time of the year in the first year of growing it. And so the row covers are available in like 20, 50, 100 foot, and there's even longer pieces available. But that for us, it took me I grew a lot of crummy eucalyptus for a lot of years, meaning it was puny, it was short. It's like, why am I even bothering with this? But it's because of the way we're doing it that makes that happen. And so the other thing I want to remind everybody of is everything you need to know is in this book, the Cut Flower Handbook, and it's on page 193. It's a beautiful book, y'all. Here is the eucalyptus, 3 pages. There. Sorry, y'all. Licking my fingers after having a eucalyptus. Kind of tasty. Shows you seedlings. It tells you all of my growing tips, variety selection, everything you need to know for growing a cut flower garden, including 66 different flowers, 25 of which are warm season, one of which is eucalyptus, and 41 cool season flowers, as well as the bonus PDF that you printed home of the 6 flowers that would not fit in the book, y'all. And so that'll just answer all of your questions. This book, in combination with our calendar journal, which I talked about earlier, that's pre-orders are now open for the first shipping, which will be shipping in late November. That calendar, this book, you will never have to ask anybody again, when should you plant a warm or cool season annual? You'll have all the information. The calendar goes through 8 different succession windows, of which if you're a pre-order purchaser, you'll be invited to my free live workshop of going through all those successions to find your planting windows, which will just guide you for the rest of what you need to do. Seed starting, which leads you back to when you need to have the seeds, to everything you need, y'all. And again, I just want to say that, being a stellar flower grower is becoming a succession grower. And that calendar, which was born and raised here on this farm in the last 15 years, that we have now created for you to customize to your conditions. You plug in your frost dates and your winter low temperature, and that just guides you through all those successions. And it's going to change everything. It did for me. I don't remember all this stuff. A great example, we're on the verge of our cut flower kale for fall harvest is scrumptious, y'all. It is so tall and so straight out there and so beautiful. Why is it all those things? And if I was, it'd be perfect timing to be ready for the whole month of November, which is what we grow cut flower cabbages for, right? Tablescapes, arrangements, they look like roses on the top. They're just amazing. How did I remember to start them? And by the way, I have fall blooming snapdragons, cool flowers. How did I have those and that kale? Because written on my big calendar in the middle of summer, when we are hot, exhausted, tired, and could care less about fall because we're burnt up, we look at our calendar. As long as I have my glasses on, I know what to do. The calendar said, oh, Bobo, look, this week you're supposed to start kale seeds and snapdragon seeds so that we'll be cutting them in October and November. Friends, this is the key. It's just, so the calendar's $40 plus shipping, y'all. It is going to be the resource that can flip you from running around not knowing and relying on asking other people. I don't mind people asking me questions at all. What I do, just want you to know, is every question that I get is answered in this book. Every question I get about growing flowers is in this book. And the calendar streamlines it and makes it so you figure all that out. I do it in January is my month to do it for the rest of the year. And then you just go on autopilot, y'all, through your calendar. So friends, I'll get off my high horse now. Because, I love that people think that I remember all this mess, but I do not. That calendar has been the brain of my flower farm for the last 15 years, of the planting and seed starting part anyway. Not the marketing, not the business, but the seed starting, having the seeds, when to order the seeds, when to order plugs, when to have the beds ready. When did we harvest those first zinnias last year? Depending on the way you sell, for me, because we sold to 23 florists, 2 supermarket chains, at farmers markets, at a members only market, and a bouquet subscription, a large number of the flowers that we used were put into mixed bouquets. That meant they were not tracked on billing. And, everybody got invoiced. Well, if it's mixed bouquets, that doesn't tell us what flowers they are. That doesn't tell me when maybe a flower that we don't sell to florists, for whatever one that might be, doesn't show up anywhere except on the calendar, where that's my Saturday notes. I tell you on the calendar what I use the different day of the week columns for. It's like Saturdays are big deals. First zinnia harvest, first Lysianthus, the first of stuff, first hummingbird, whatever's important to you, So friends, please jump on it while you can. And I can't wait for y'all to have this calendar in your hands, and it's going to be a big deal. All right, my friends, until we meet again, ciao.